Tonight on the Game On podcast, it was an absolute bloodbath in Sydney as Adelaide actually played the perfect game. And as this act, the goal assist of the year, it was pretty special. I think most soccer players would be pretty happy with it as well. And we didn't talk about it much last week, but the Adelaide 36ers are showing their cards and they are all in.
So.
All right, let's do this. Welcome to the Game On podcast. My name's Pete. Malcolm's with me once again in the studio. Mate, how's your week been?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not too bad. So
keeping out of trouble?
Occasionally, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, we're going to talk the SANFL a little bit later, but
yes.
you'd have been pretty happy with Nord's performance, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I'm really worried about West Adelaide, though. They're just surviving.
Yep.
In every possible way.
Yep, we'll talk about that a little bit later anyway. Firstly, for the people who don't know, we were recognised for an award, not this podcast, but another podcast that I do.
Yep, well done, mate.
Thank you very much. And I have to shout out to Phil, who obviously has filled in for us here a few times. Well done to Phil there and getting that and a little bit of publicity there for some lawn bowls as well. So that was probably my highlight of the weekend.
So it should have been,
and
mate.
It was a lot of fun that night, and we thank Bowls SA for that recognition as well. All right, let's move to Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, as per usual, we'll talk a little bit of SANFL, some soccer, and the netball a little bit later, but let's kick off with the AFL. Maybe we'll start off with probably the biggest announcement that's happened for the AFL this year, and that is Greg Swan has been named to run a few very, very, very key areas of the AFL.
Yeah, it's good news. It's a footy person. To say Laura struggled is an understatement.
Well, do you think she was given too many items on her agenda?
Yeah, yes, but we can only judge on what we saw publicly.
Yep.
And unfortunately, she was batting zero, basically, there.
Yep.
Like a couple of press conferences on umpiring. She just didn't understand. She lacked footy nous and really struggled. I'm sitting there thinking, hang on, this is a person in a key role, and she didn't understand what was a really basic footy question at one stage. And, way beyond her capability levels. I still think she's too high.
Yes.
I think she might be a person who's good at given a job, as most people are followers, not initiators.
Yes.
The overwhelming majority. I think she might be more suited there. And, unfortunately exposed dramatically.
Do you see her new role, much easier to manage from that point of view, and then does become a little bit that role that you just talked about under, say, Greg Swan?
Possibly, but even then, to still be the spokesperson for AFLW, I think is way above her capability levels on what she's sown so far on footy nous-wise. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah, still a worry.
A couple of months ago, there were a lot of jobs up for grabs at the AFL. Didn't look like they were going to get anybody. They've really gone out and targeted some pretty key influential people within the football industry, haven't they?
Yes, and it's pretty obvious. It's obviously started a while back now that they had him before they announced it, and so they should.
Yep.
Now, there's words on Tom Harley being targeted. I haven't spoken to Hales. I admit I've tried to get some news out of a Harley family member, but haven't yet. But I will keep on that. No. But purely knowing the ages of Tom's kids and the fact Felicity went back, comes from Sydney, that's why Tom is in Sydney, that the deal was, right,
we'll do the football thing wherever you need to go.
Geelong, now we're back there. And so it'd be a big thing to move them with their kids' ages at school and all that. So I'd be surprised. Look, I would love it to happen. For the good of football, I think Tom Harley is just an unbelievable operator. I've obviously been involved with him enough to have seen it firsthand.
And what he's done at Sydney, really has been incredible. Let's take the last couple of weeks out of it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that's not his fault.
That's on ground.
That's correct.
What he's done, him and Andrew Pridham, etc., off ground, and that they are a very, very efficient organisation. Because what you're operating with there now, the worry is Sydney, geez, they drop off if they lose. They're almost pulling hamstrings running out the ground. A couple of mates who were there said they were just pissing themselves laughing as Sydney people were leaving. It's almost like you go to going to the theatre.
You don't give a good show, and the walkout is there.
Different.
Simon Garlick is obviously another one that was, potentially named in this role. He's come out today and sort of said it, or late yesterday, saying, I've got still things to achieve at Fremantle, the age of his kids, which is the same as Tom Harley. Mate, I'm going to throw a name up, and I haven't heard this name for a little while, and that is Brendan Gale. Because of the delicate situation of Tasmania, are they potentially holding out for that to be a yay or a nay?
Yeah, there's lots of things.
Because he's a good
there.
operator as far as football now goes, and obviously at Clubland and in a CEO's role.
Geez, it's a real worry down there. I did speak. The role of running Adelaide Uni's past players, you do speak to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a person who is involved in that.
Yep.
And, he's really worried about whether it's going to happen or not.
Yep. Is that a good thing for the AFL, not having that 19th team come in when we are clearly struggling for the better word, lack of consistency of depth in a lot of these clubs, and especially...
I think 18 at the moment's too many.
This is what I'm saying, is that going to 19 is a real problem. So is this maybe a little bit of a blessing in disguise? I know it's not great for Tasmania, and don't get me wrong, I would love a Tasmanian team. Totally get it, but it's got to be feasible for everybody.
But the worry is if they knock it back now, I can't see how they can ever accept it in the future, because the costs are only going to keep going one way.
Yep.
They're not going the other way.
Yep.
And they're going that way dramatically, a lot more than inflation, etc. So I think if they knock it back now, I think that's it.
So I know I flagged this a couple of weeks ago, and I said it, I think, a little bit last week. Is it a case of maybe a relocated team could potentially save that deal to start with anyway?
Yeah, possibly. But again, they're saying it's a non-negotiable. The stadium, or there's not a license.
Yep.
So I can't see how it'll go ahead.
Okay. Going to be an interesting watch, that's for sure. And like I said, there's certainly worse people than Brendan Gale going around that could fit into that role quite seamlessly.
But they'd look pretty stupid if they backed off now and said, we'll go ahead without. Like when they've kept saying it's a non-negotiable, and they've even reverberated that again today.
Yes.
I can't see how they can go against that.
Well, the government's got a lot of arguments when it comes to it. I listened to a little bit of it the other day. Some of it was a bit wah-wah, but the other part of it was actually, some of it does make sense. So I think there's got to be some common ground there somewhere along the line. Do you think cricket's got something to do with that as well, potentially? Sorry, just a question about notice.
No, it has. And the design originally has now been changed because the shade with the way the roof was set up meant cricket was virtually impossible with the reflection and that. Now that's now been changed. They think they've now sorted that part out, so that brings cricket back in, which is very important in the figures side of things.
That's what I'm saying when it comes to that negotiation. So yes, question without notice there, but I thought that might be the case. Let's get on to Adelaide last week. Obviously, Port Adelaide having the bye. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but let's talk Adelaide. Wow, didn't see it coming. I saw a win coming, but I didn't see it coming like that.
Not to that extent. No, it was. Look, Adelaide were very good, but Sydney are, we've got it down on the running sheet in terms of What? Carry on. I know Hales well enough that he would have laughed that he even got a phone call about it.
Yep.
That's the least of their worries getting said they're a rabble.
You're talking about the rabble comment from Wayne Miller Jr., talking about obviously the on-go,
on-field.
We've all been in games where on-field and you're copping a spray from a teammate or, hey, you're not covering for me, what's going on?
And you love it, it's the opposition.
You do. You absolutely love it because you've got them. It's the same on a bowls green. It's the same on a football. It's the same in a test.
I think Sydney actually would have been quite happy he said it. That it would have been, right, guys, what in the hell is going on out there? Come on.
Yep.
So I actually think...
So you think for Cox it's a blessing in disguise that it's been pointed out?
Yeah.
It was a Storm and a Team Cup.
Yeah.
It was great to see Adelaide finally sort of be ruthless, and they sounded quite ruthless there, even though I know it wasn't meant that way. But then it was undone by that phone call that you mentioned as well, which...
I don't mind if he rang Harley and said, right, just look, blah, 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 that's it, bang. But don't then let the media know that you've rung Sydney to apologise. I thought that was ridiculous.
Is it a case of Adelaide trying to be too much of the nice guy, considering their past indiscretions when you think about it?
Yeah, I would have thought Tim Silvers would have had enough experience not to have done that. I found that bizarre.
Is it because the media sort of jumped on a little bit saying
Yeah,
it was
but-
disrespectful initially, and then I think
just
a lot
would've-
of people actually afterwards sort of went, well,
Yeah,
it's actually calling it what it was. It was pathetic.
I just couldn't believe Adelaide reacted in that way personally.
Do you think it would have got the same reaction if a player had come out and said they were pathetic and they were,
I just thought it was really. I thought it was fine in context. If you hear the whole sentence, it's fine.
Yep.
Not a problem with it whatsoever.
Because he's talking about what was going on out on the ground.
And no problem with that. And we want all the media, we want the players, so you interview the players. Good luck getting anything but the standard answer now out of them. That's it. And even then it wasn't bad, obviously, but at least had a bit of honesty about it. Well, now that's the last time you'll get any honesty from a player this year.
And in reality, he's actually one that doesn't do too many interviews. So when you look at it in the whole scheme of things, you go, well,
I'll bet you don't hear from him again.
I bet you we don't either. I think he will run as soon as the cameras come in. He'll be running in the other direction. And I don't blame him because he's been smashed really for no reason.
Ridiculous.
It was. All right. Josh Rochelle had probably one of his better games. His last 6 weeks have been pretty solid as far as putting it together. But he
started the year very well as well. Before he was superb before he got his cracked ribs. Then he took a couple of games when he came back, probably,
just feeling it out a little bit.
Well, you do,
absolutely,
and that. So to that, but no, he's a unique talent. Whether he works hard enough defensively at times and that, but
do you think someone like they recruited Alex Neil-Bullen? Do you think someone like that can actually mentor him to say,
no doubt about that.
Be here, be there, which Neil-Bullen, as you saw on the weekend, was in all the right spots with a ridiculous amount of stats. It's no wonder they gave him a night off the track tonight because, he did everything, didn't he?
Glowingly of him, though, in terms of leadership-wise.
Is that something that Melbourne, obviously, we know from an Adelaide point of view, is obviously a positive? Is that something that Melbourne hasn't been able to fill?
Yeah, quite possibly.
And is that why that they're struggling a little bit with that? Or is it deeper than that with, say, Petrarca and Oliver and Gorn?
Yeah, maybe. But I'm sorry, 7 goals, 21. Geez, some of the shots for goal you and I would have kicked. It was terrible. And I will have a crack at Simon Goodwin and the Melbourne coaching staff to let Wanganeen-Malira run around like an unregistered dog was ridiculous. If I'm playing St Kilda, I'm bumping the crap out of him.
Yep.
I'll give away a free kick and give away behind the play, holding him more than letting him run off. The one where he ran off, received, gave, received, delivered to Higgins 60 yards out, down the ground it was a leap by him. But I'm sitting there thinking, where in the hell's the pressure on him?
Why isn't somebody in his back pocket and really basically making it uncomfortable for him? I totally agree. I
don't get why halfback flankers are being allowed in general. Connor Rosie as well in the game here,
Adelaide,
just to let him go.
Yep.
And I thought Adelaide finally got with Keys being used on Blakey. I hope Keys gets Zorko on Friday night.
Yep. We'll talk about that one as we go along. But Josh Rochelle, really impressive, and that little goal assist, which we showed in the package at the beginning for our YouTube listeners, and I might as well say it now. Please like, rate, subscribe. All that helps us out along the way. But we showed that in our package at the beginning. That little deft touch.
Oh, it was brilliant.
And isn't it great that different codes, different sports are played as juniors, that they can transfer them to the Aussie rules footy.
And thank goodness Keys kicked the goal.
Yes.
That did help. A certain Nord number 8 might have been reminded that he did miss the goal from Keith Thomas's mark in 84.
Yes.
This week.
Yep.
He did have a bit, righto, blah, blah, blah.
I'm sure that the messages were flying thick and fast. But, and it was great to see Keys obviously finish off a lot of hard work. I did actually hear Matty Nix talk last night on AFL 360, I think it was, about that. The most pleasing part about all of that was something that they'd been working on with Keezy, which was actually finishing a goal like that. Yeah. He's usually a bit of a snapper and sort of is in the right spot, 20 metres out, 30 metres out. But to actually run from centre of the ground and burn off an opponent and kick that ball from 40 out and pretty straight and accurate was really good.
It's actually interesting listening to Paul Roos today on the
Yes.
AFL Daily bit, where he was very critical of where Blakey got on his positioning there. He said, yeah, brilliant by Kerr. So unbelievable by Rochelle. It was all complimentary.
Yes.
But he said the positioning of Blakey was
Opened it up for that.
atrocious.
Yep. There you go. Speaking of, Paul Roos came out today saying, look, you can't blame the last 2 grand finals. You can't blame this, can't blame that. Does he have a point?
I just think he always talks common sense. I love listening to him talk footy.
Are you surprised that a club hasn't come, not knocking to be a senior coach, but just a word of advice?
Oh, I think they do.
Okay.
Don't worry. I think that he gets constantly asked, but I think he's pretty cruisy.
Yep.
Goes back and forth to America a fair bit.
Yep.
And that, so, yeah, under that.
Oh, hey, we should try and get him on at some stage, but I don't know whether our budget will cover that, unfortunately.
Well, one of our former guests on the show, Keith Thomas,
yes,
on his...
and part 3 coming up a little bit later.
Yeah, but on KT, one of his favourite photos is a photo of him, Gary Pert, obviously Paul Roos,
yes,
and I'm not sure if it's Richard Osborne as the other one, whatever. That holds pride of place in KT's lounge room, that photo and that. And, yeah, he just speaks glowingly.
The old Fitzroy boys?
Yeah, but he just speaks glowingly.
I can imagine. Yep, absolutely. Well, I mean, he's done it at several clubs, so I totally get it. We talked about, obviously, Alex Neil-Bullen's leadership, but let's talk about Adelaide's list profile. Have they got the perfect mix of that old and new? And I called a couple of weeks ago for Brodie Smith to be added back to the Crows lineup just for that little stinger, that little penetrating kick that he does quite well.
I think that helps especially even more on the SCG. Now, I think it's very interesting this week.
Yeah, well, do you play Laird?
I think Laird will play.
Do you play Smith?
I think he might be sub.
Okay.
The Draper, the lack of footy he's played, the possibility of wet weather on Friday night.
Yep.
So Smith to come on with his long leg late in the game, from 3/4 time, I think is the potential.
Okay.
So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one as we go along. Let's talk Port Adelaide. Will the week off change anything or refresh the squad for the second half of the season? What's Port Adelaide's end game? And I've got this as the next point here, is what is their pass mark for the second half of the season? What can they achieve?
Well, a lot better last halves just to be more competitive for one.
Yep.
Actually win a last quarter, I reckon, would be their aim this week.
Because they're none from 11, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's a damning statistic.
Yeah. It's just incredible stat. So, look, Greater Western Sydney were disappointing on.
Against Richmond.
Yeah. Oh, look, yes, Ward's injury, etc. But yeah, we'll talk about that game a bit because I have got a couple of things to say about that. No, we
definitely will. What's a pass mark for them? Is it on the win-loss ladder? Is it winning a last quarter, as you said? Is it a combination? I think
it's all a combination, but just to be, you don't want to see some more thrashings. That's the bit at the moment where the white flag seems to go up pretty quickly.
Would you have imagined at the start of the season that Port Adelaide would have woven the white flag?
No, not like they have.
And Sydney as well?
Yeah, it's a real worry in terms. I thought, borderline bottom end of the 8.
Yep.
And
I had them just outside the 8.
Yeah, well, at the moment they're not going to be outside their 8. So
no, not just outside the 8. They're going to be well and truly.
And they haven't got their first round draft choice.
That's right.
So it's not a great year to have a shit year. So.
Joshy Carr's got his work ahead of him. Do they play some of the young ones? Do they experiment a little bit? I know that you're not really tampering too much, are you? But you really want to have a look at and see what's what, aren't you?
Yeah, as long as they're reasonably close. It's not like their SANFL side's doing that much. They were better this last game. They beat North Adelaide in an upset.
Yep.
So it's probably
they
not
only got up against West Adelaide by a point the week before.
There's not. I don't think there's a huge amount. I think there's a bit of gap right with their young kids.
Yep. Which is what we sort of flagged at the beginning of the year, wasn't it? That the 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th player in that squad is probably not quite there, whereas Adelaide have got that depth because of the four that they brought in. So, it's very interesting. there's a few players that are in Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira's ear. What do Port have to do to get him?
Yeah, you got to say at the moment, you'd be surprised if they managed it because you can't really see what else they've got to offer.
This is where I'm at with it.
If they to get him, they're going to lose a Bergman and
So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, so look, I'd love to get him.
Yep.
And and that, but I'm just not sure what they've got.
Does that leave Adelaide a bit more in the box seat with that?
Possibly.
Or and I did hear this, and I think it's a very, very good point, which I hadn't considered, is that Ross Lyon's game style suits Wanganeen-Malira, or does an Adelaide sort of have that free run off of that half-back flank already and he just slots in, does what he does best?
Yeah, possibly. Look, but yes, he does. He's a fan of Ross Lyon. Like, he's close to Hill and Keilor and that. So there's some reasons for him to stay at St Kilda. My mail is he's leaning more to staying at St Kilda, but
it's definitely a watch. That's
each week he doesn't sign.
It opens up the door, doesn't it?
It only means shows like ours are only going to be talking more and more.
Absolutely, and that's why we've had it on the list, I think, for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Can we see a list clean out? What's Josh Carr's most pressing issue, do you think? Is it keeping Butters, keeping Bergman?
It's definitely keeping those two, but then, I think they're small forwards. You've still Richards, Berry. They recruited him this year. Probably, and Berry's still a kid.
Yes.
And Richards has probably been okay, but only okay.
Yep.
They need a bit more than that. And so you've got a bit of a question mark on the key forwards. Marshall and Lukosius get injured. So, Lukosius was nearly back and he's hurt his back. So he's missing another 2 or 3 with the back.
Yep.
So.
It always happens with those type of injuries. You concentrate and strength in one area and the other area just gets a little bit lost in the wash. Port Adelaide, what do they do with their ruck situation?
I wouldn't be surprised if they went back to Jordan Sweet. Jordan Sweet's played pretty well at SANFL level. I think Vicente looks like he's run out of puff. Now, whether this week off helps.
Yep.
And that. Now,
does Travis Boak get another game?
Possibly. Now, one thing about Vicente is Briggs is injured for GWS. So all of a sudden this week, he's got a chance to approach that. Right, I should be the dominant big man, not I just want to compete. Mm-hmm. So different mentality. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. It
definitely will. We'll keep an eye on Port Adelaide, especially after last weekend. All right, Hawthorn, the great pretenders. Have teams worked them out? Can they work their way through it?
Yeah, a bit early to say that. Probably, though, the one thing that was the open secret in football that Sicily's been carrying injuries, and Hawthorn have denied the crap out of it and actually carried on like pork chops, and now he's not playing the next fortnight. Yep. I hate that crap from footy clubs.
Yep.
Jeez, it's pathetic.
Is that papering over some cracks, do you think, by them doing that? Even though everybody knows that's exactly what's going on?
Yeah, and look, I was surprised that they went for Barras and Battle. I think one of them definitely, but I'm not convinced because it's not like you're going to get great run from either of them.
Yep.
They're both. Barras is obviously the more key defender, the big-bodied fullback, centre-half back.
But again, the way they're defending at the moment is nowhere near.
I'm not quite sure why they went for both. Yep. And so there's question marks. There's question marks over their midfield, but their lack of tackle intent. Now, yes, Collingwood's ball movement, elite, brilliant last Friday night.
Absolutely.
As good as we've ever seen.
Yep.
But 30-odd tackles again. The Wizard, no tackles in the last 2 weeks. Now, 3/4 time last week, I would have put him in the middle.
Yep.
Right, let's get in there and get dirty, young fella. Not just the forward. I want to see you compete for a quarter.
The art of coaching from Sammy Mitchell. Plan B a little bit.
Yeah, or just exposed. They weren't going to win the game at 3/4 time. Why not have given it a try? Put a bit of pressure on him.
Yep.
But no, he's played as a deep forward. The ball didn't go down there. And
Sammy Mitchell's been known to throw the magnets around. I'm surprised that he wouldn't have tried something like that, especially against Collingwood.
I would have put the absolute heat on Watson after the week before. I want four tackles out of you tonight. There was none again. That's damning.
Bit of a worry. Where are they really at, mate? Do you think where they are on the ladder is about right?
No, look, early in the year, their disposal by foot was brilliant, and it cut. They won a game. I'm trying to think who it was against, where they had way less inside 50s, less touches, but won the game convincingly.
Yep.
So I think it's a bit early to write them off yet.
No, I'm not writing them off. I'm just saying where are they really at in the scheme
Well, they've got a big fortnight ahead of them.
Yep.
If they lose the next two, then suddenly that's probably the end of top four.
Yep.
So
and then you're clinging to save that top eight.
That last 8 spot. Yeah.
Very interesting. Has Hockball been a success or a failure, or still got some work to do?
Work to do. I'm not writing him off yet.
Yep. Very, very interesting. Losses to Gold Coast, Brisbane, Collingwood. Reality check.
I'm trying to remember what Brisbane were. Were they 4-7 or 5-7 at the break?
4-7, I think.
I reckon they were at the break last year. So I think that's probably reminds all of us. Hold.
Yes. Yep.
Absolutely. I'm a bit scared about Fremantle now.
Yes. Well, they've got a pretty good run home.
Yes.
I think the other scary one is probably Geelong as well. So they've got a.
I can't see how Geelong don't finish top 2 with the draw they've got.
That's where I'm at with it as well. And Bailey Smith playing well. Paddy Dangerfield coming back. We'll talk about that one a little bit in a minute. We're talking about Wangani Malira. If he does leave, how much will it set St Kilda back? Let's talk St Kilda specifically now. If he does go, does that set them back?
Oh, no doubt. It's massive. You lose your best player. He's there. He's yes, look, I think they're nice and unlucky because I think Max King is the guy that were really holding their hopes. He still hasn't played a game this year.
Yep.
Fitness test for round 1. He hasn't played yet.
Yep. That's a concern in itself.
Yeah. So, look, but he's just, Wayne Malira is just a beautiful player to watch. His disposal by foot is just brilliant.
Yep. And his dash off of half-back. Certainly sets them back. Obviously, Matthias Philippo's obviously at St Kilda. It's the other St Kilda topic. We've talked previously, you sort of flagged that, he's the kind of young lad that's quite happy where he is, wants to sort of try and stay at one club for a period of time. He just needs a bit more game time at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, his body's letting him down a bit at the moment. He's been unlucky. And look,
when he's on the park, that does make a big difference.
And it was interesting because watched him train in gather round here, and I was sitting with his dad.
Yep.
And we thought, well, he's not. I said, well, come on, what have you got? And he said, actually, not much more than you, Malcolm.
Yep.
And I said, well, surely he's only a week or two away. And it was probably another 5 weeks or so he played after that, which was really surprising because he joined in everything that day.
Yep.
So wasn't like they rushed him back, and then the weekend was a bit innocuous. Just calf again. It's a worry him getting calf problems as a kid.
Yes.
So different.
It's definitely going to be a watch, that's for sure. Let's move on to Carlton, my big topic or hobby horse, I suppose. The new CEO is going to come in. He's got to make some changes. What do you see as his most pressing issue for Carlton to make that change?
Well, he didn't muck around with the Collingwood list, did he?
No, he didn't.
So it will be interesting. And I think everyone's going, well, after what he did at Collingwood, is he going to come in and do the same? So I think everyone's
on notice?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. So list is probably the number one priority, I suppose, for the new CEO?
It is, but also there could be questions there to go, well, how did you come to the decision that Kennedy and Owies weren't required? Because at the moment you're going, that's just a bewildering decision.
Yep. Let's stick with Carlton. Would you trade someone like Sam Walsh?
You need to know what's going the other way. You got to. It's a really impossible question with us to sit when you haven't got the salary cap in front of you. You don't. You just don't. I just think it's too hard a question.
What's your gut feel? Do you think that they would be better off without him or worse off without him?
Again, it depends what you're getting back.
Yep. Say you're getting draft picks. Let's go down that path. Because then you're back into development mode, aren't you?
Yeah. You're effectively deciding, right, we're not competing for another 3 years or so. Or you're deciding that Jager Smith's going to be an absolute gun before he's played a game and after missing a year.
Yep. Well, they did pin some pretty big hopes on him during the pre-season, and they gave him a fair rap. So, injury was tough there. Let's talk Carlton still. Would you trade Ed Curnow? or
I wouldn't trade Curnow personally. I'd trade Mackay more than Curnow personally.
Couldn't forget that.
But, yeah. Again, you've got to know what they're being offered.
Yep. Well, I mean, we look at Adelaide and go, gee, 3 up forward, it's probably a luxury. They can't really afford too much, but they make it work. We know that Walker's probably the commander down there and makes that work for them. Is it a case of that there's too many big guys in that forward line and the midfielder just bombing all the time?
Well, you're certainly watching. You can't see any remote system compared to, we've spoken about it both on air and off air, just in bewilderment that Collingwood are a mile in front of everyone else with structure. There's been some videos come out. I don't know if you've seen the one with he's instructing it.
Yes.
And it's interesting because he's engaging. It's do it my way, but it's not do it my way or the highway. It's more come with me. And you can see the players, the buy-in, and you could just see the look on Houston's face that it'd be interesting to get out of him. Yeah. Have you learnt more this year than the last few years put together? Sort of thing.
That's a very, very good point, and one that we might just keep on the agenda here and bring that one up towards the end of the season.
Especially if they go top at the top and that.
Because he's not having the dominant year. Let's talk Collingwood now. Houston. He's not having the dominant year that he had previously at Port Adelaide, but he's doing the team role to make him the most effective and efficient player. And if he's getting the best results for the team, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I don't think they're set up that way. And apparently one of Matthew Nick's most pleasing points out of the weekend was stats-wise, no one dominated. The highest one was 21 touches, which apparently he's made a bit of a beeline for, that it was very good whole team.
Well, you look at the top 6 best players, none of the usual suspects. No Rankin, no Dawson. So it was the that middle tier that was getting the job done, and that's where it's at. And I think that's where Collingwood's at. Again, watching Fox Footy a bit last night there, the premiership window, Adelaide are in that, Collingwood are in that.
I take Adelaide.
And Gold Coast are in it, but you've got to work out who they play.
Yeah, and that's my point at the moment. That, hang on, Adelaide have beaten GWS so far.
Yep.
They haven't really grabbed a scalp. It's a big game Friday night. It really is, to see where they're at.
Well, the rain's going to play a part with that.
Yeah, look, and it's probably going to come down to a close game. Who takes their chances? That's really what it's going to come down.
I just think that Lachie Neal's going to have one of those nights that just down and dirty and just get the job done. I think the conditions will suit him as well.
I'm McCluggage.
Oh, well, he's having a fantastic year.
Yep.
Collingwood's still your number 1 seed, mate?
Yep, purely their system. Love it.
Who's second, and is it by a long way?
I think their system by a long way. I don't think they're the best side, because I still think others may have more ability.
Yep.
But just their system is incredible.
So champion team rather than team of champions?
I think number 2 is Split. Is just such line ball. Geelong and Brisbane.
Yep.
Line ball.
Yep. That's where I'd be at with it as well. Freo, you did mention Freo as being a little bit of a sleeping giant.
Yeah. Oh, look, and for mine, Bolton was the real question mark. Like, they gave up a lot to get him.
Yes.
And I thought, you just didn't know with him. And his first few weeks were average. Average to, okay. Not what you're giving up. And the stats over the last 4 weeks, and again, the telling one for mine is the tackling.
Mm-hmm.
His tackles have more than doubled in the last month.
Yep.
Now, the tackle on the last play of the game to then force the ball free for Amos to kick the sealer, he wasn't doing anywhere near that 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So to get buy-in from him, which you're never really sure with him.
Did you think he got a bit of a rocket?
I think he might have after the St Kilda game.
Yep.
They said they spoke and that, but I think the acid might have got put on him. Right, hey, for what you're getting paid, what we've given up to get you, we want more than an okay. Yeah. And he's delivered to
the old ROI, return on investment, they were hoping for. That tackle was an absolute beauty, wasn't it? Yeah. He chased him and hunted him down and just got on the right side of him.
On a beautiful goal to put them back in front after, because Gold Coast dominated the first 15 minutes of the third quarter. Again, it comes down to taking your chances. Ben King, 25 metres out, nearly straight in front, kicks it out on the full.
Yes.
that was crucial when Gold Coast were getting right on top.
Yep. There's been a few games like that.
Oh, there were
this
2 on the
year, hasn't
weekend.
it? Yeah.
Richmond lost the game.
Yeah. Is that a case of their young guys not knowing how to win?
A little bit of that,
Yep.
but also I watched that game reasonably closely. And it was interesting talking to a recruiter who I respect today, where I said, how in the hell do the guys get to draft level with major deficiencies in their game?
Yep.
Sims' ball drop for Richmond is horrendous. It's way too high. And
is that because we're recruiting athletes rather than footballers?
Well, I think it's also would have been, as a junior, you can guarantee you would have absolutely dominated. Everyone would have gone, geez, how good Simsy.
Yep.
Simsy's going to be a superstar. Well, instead of someone actually with it there going, well, hey, let's fix his kick up now. And it's a bloody hard thing to correct. Even now he's in an AFL environment.
Yep.
Trying to fix it up now after you've had that action for 6-7 years, whatever.
Yep.
And the other one's full. Let's go back to the Richmond side. Is slightly better, but they're both technically poor.
Yep.
And
is that something you work on during season or in the off season?
Both at the moment. You love their competitiveness, and that was a comment by a recruiter today where he said it's only the top few who haven't got weaknesses. He says where you love the Victorian big kids is how much they compete, that they're physical.
Yep.
And there's no doubt those two are both physically fantastic. And I think they've been well above what they expected.
Yes.
But there's a couple of massive glaring deficiencies which cost games.
Yep.
And Richmond lost the game on the weekend. GWS didn't win it. Yeah, Ward's involvement,
well,
just purely his selfless to give the speech at three-quarter time was brilliant. But Richmond tried to save the game. Like, I'd love to know what got said at three-quarter time where it should have been, guys, if we kick 2 goals, we've won this game.
Yep.
Don't worry about them. Let's keep attacking. And they went into, there was nearly 10 minutes to go and they were trying to save the game. And I'm going, no, you bananas. You've got to kick a goal to win the game.
Yep.
And that's where I was disappointed with them. It was just a lack of.
Is that part of that learning experience for Richmond?
It is, but there were some experienced players as well in that. There was Vasselin holding the ball up where he should have run forward, taken the game on when they were 4 points up. They had to kick another goal.
Which got them into that position in the first place.
Jonty Four was the one I was trying to think of.
Yep.
Both those two. Anyone out there, watch Richmond, watch those two, especially Sims. His hands are way too high when he drops the ball.
There you go. Speaking of ball drops, Nathan Bassett's probably one that had an unusual ball drop, but boy, oh boy, it was accurate and pretty steady, wasn't it? It was just a little bit off to what everyone else was doing, and I think that was probably his unique talent, just thinking about unique drops and that were effective. So
he's been unorthodox with cricket too, but geez, he could bat.
There you go. An all-rounder. All right, let's talk about last week's games. Brisbane Lions got a little bit of an awakening from Essendon.
Essendon were very good. To Essendon's massive credit, which I think we all were expecting at least a 10-goal win.
Well, after the first quarter, I think we're all expecting 10 goal. Yeah, 10 goal plus.
And the fact Essendon hit the front the last quarter, geez, there was game on there for a bit.
Do you subscribe to the honourable defeat?
Yeah, I do, especially with so many out. Because they wouldn't have been expecting to be that competitive, really.
Yep. Nate Caddy's going to be a special player, isn't he?
Yep.
Absolutely. Did you see Collingwood getting up over Hawthorn by 51 points is a bit of a statement?
Yeah, just to how efficient they were, as we keep going on about. Yep.
Freo getting up over the Gold Coast, I think that was probably a little bit of a surprise considering it was up in the Gold Coast.
It was, but it was just take your chances. They didn't. Richmond didn't. Melbourne's kicking for goal was even worse.
Yep.
They kicked 0 goals 8 the last quarter.
It
was shocking.
1 goal 21 or something.
Yeah,
from
7-21.
Half time or something.
Whatever. No, it was just terrible.
Absolutely. And the other one was the West Coast Eagles were very, very competitive against Geelong, but Jeremy Cameron just
put it on the lights out in the last quarter, but you could actually see some improvement and from that, which, let's be honest, a month ago you couldn't from West Coast, so that they are improving.
Are you impressed with the West Coast Eagles fans for turning up?
Yes.
Because we talk about it here with the basketball, we sell out the stadium even though the team hasn't been successful for a period of time.
No, they do.
This is a team that's really struggled for
and
the
they've
last
been shitouts for the last 3
years.
No
and yet they're getting 40,000 plus each time.
And you watch Port Adelaide do that, they won't be getting anywhere near that number.
Yep. You put that on the agenda. The Tarps could be back at Port Adelaide, which would be a very sad sight. I must admit, going to that Port Showdown there, it was quite a party vibe. It's something a little bit different. So
it was interesting that night how many Crow supporters. There were more Crow supporters there that night than I expected.
Yep.
So, it was a good night.
Is that because of where Port Adelaide are at the moment?
A little bit, but I just thought it was very I was surprised that, that bit behind the goals, where, down from where we were, was all Crows.
Yep. So, buys for Carlton, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide. And the other team we haven't talked about, which could be a little bit of a sleeper as well, is the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, especially the word is that Darcy's put on a bit of weight. Now, if he's done that in his time out, good luck standing him.
It'll be a bit like Thilthorpe, won't it?
Yeah.
He was sort of had his injury a little bit slight, come back looking like the Incredible Hulk to a certain degree.
It'll be interesting.
All right, one last one on the footy topics, and then we'll get into our tips for this week. One bye for everyone in one round or scattered byes throughout the season. What's your thoughts, mate?
I see the bit of both. I'm still glad there's footy on.
Could we get back to a community round if it is all at once?
Yeah, and actually focus on the SANFL
and the waffle,
footy,
the VFL. Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Obviously, I'd like that.
Yep.
But I can see both sides.
Could it be a case of players go out to those local league clubs just to try and get
back to their original club, all that side of things?
Yeah, just to get more people through the gate, even. Half an hour signing and photograph
all
session.
That side of things. I would love that.
Sausage sizzle, whatever.
I love that side of things.
I reckon it could be for me, if Greg Swan's taking any requests, I suppose, that'd be one. I reckon it's one bye for everyone. Make it a community round where players go back to their local clubs.
There's not enough given back to community football.
Yep. And then the other one on top of that was, and Matty Nix brought it up beautifully last night, was that the last touch out of bounds has to be something that they could potentially bring in.
Just got to.
Yep. All right, let's talk tips for this week. This one's an absolute beauty, mate. Thursday night, Western Bulldogs v Hawthorn.
I'll go Western Bulldogs, but I think it'll be a close game.
I think the acid's been put on Hawthorn, but I think the Bulldogs, for me, I think structure-wise, again, a bit like Collingwood, not a team of absolute household names, but they get the job done. And even when they traded out some players, you thought, I don't know. They've done well.
They should have beaten Geelong. They lost that game again. Like they had 6 posters that night. Mm-hmm. They should have won that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the games get even better here. Adelaide v Brisbane on the Friday night.
To toss the coin, I just think Brisbane's midfield might bat a bit too deep for Adelaide.
Just a little bit of class for me for Brisbane. I'm going to pick Brisbane, but like you, I think it's going to be a tight contest that's probably going to go down to the last 2 minutes. All right, this one has got interest written all over it for a lot of the wrong reasons, and that's Richmond v Sydney.
I'll go Richmond. Sydney was so poor the last 2 weeks. You would have expected a response last week from the week before, and they were even worse. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go to Richmond in that game because I've got a bit more confidence. I think they've got a bit more trust in them than you can have in Sydney at the moment. Sydney should win. Yes. I'm not denying that.
No, I agree.
But I favour Richmond.
Do you think Richmond just go all out and go, you know what, let's just attack, and
I would hope
whatever happens?
I would hope they say, right, we lost that game last week because we didn't keep attacking.
Yep.
We went to our shell. That's the lesson we learned. Let's keep going.
Is Cox going about it the wrong way with Sydney? And can it all be stemmed back to the point of view and watching the first minute of the grand final for an hour?
You do wonder, don't you? Yeah, you do wonder.
Yep. And the beach session apparently that went on this week, and sometimes you got to wrap your arms around and go, "Hey, we're all in it together," rather than almost the old school coach have given them a flogging.
The old school, and we've been there, done that.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure you can do that so much.
No, and I think that's where they're at the moment. They need to have a look at it. Mate, gets even better. Geelong v Gold Coast.
Yeah, at GMHBA, yes. Gidea Park. I'll go the Cats.
Cats for me, but again, that's going to be a very interesting contest as well. It gets even better again. The Giants v Port Adelaide. Giants for me.
Yes, yeah. Juan Francis still out. It's pretty important.
Yeah, I did hear that tonight that they're going to wrap him in cotton wool for another week or two. Yeah. North Melbourne v West Coast at Hands Oval, Bunbury.
Because it's in WA, I'll go West Coast.
West Coast for me there as well. Are you disappointed with North Melbourne, considering now this will be, I think, their 6th season in the bottom 2?
And again, they should be the Gold Coast Kangaroos. You know my thoughts there.
I do indeed.
Very strongly.
Mate, traditional rivals here. Carlton v Essendon at the MCG.
I'll go Carlton.
Carlton for me, but only just. I think Essendon might just surprise them a little bit, obviously being the Sunday twilighty game. And then on the Monday, Melbourne v Collingwood on the King's birthday.
Yeah, you just can't tip against Collingwood. Just cannot tip against them.
Absolutely. All right, mate, we take a quick break. We've gone well and truly over time. Coming up, Adelaide United sign an old friend, I suppose. That's probably the best way of putting it. And Sturt showing the way at Elizabeth. And the Thunderbirds in an honourable loss to one of the top sides.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to buy or sell your home anywhere in Adelaide, from the hills to the sea? Meet Gary KRIEVS, your dedicated local agent from OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. With unparalleled knowledge of Adelaide's housing market and a commitment to exceptional service, Gary ensures a smooth and stress-free experience for all your real estate needs. Trust the expert, trust Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. Your next dream home awaits. Contact Gary today on 0422 071 317 or on email garyk@ocre.com.au. And for more listings, please visit owenscasserly.com.au. Make it happen. And we love our sponsors, so thank you to Gary KRIEVS there. Yes. All right, mate, let's move on. Let's talk soccer. We did flag this one actually a couple of months ago, but it's finally come to fruition, and that is Simon Goodwin is back with Adelaide United.
Craig Goodwin,
sorry.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind Goody to have a crack with that.
Sorry, that was a typo there. Yeah. Craig Goodwin obviously back, and you got Archie Goodwin there, which obviously he drew or the Golden Boot award there as well. So a little bit of firepower for the new coach or the new manager to work with.
At least it's something to work with.
Absolutely, and as I said, we flagged it a couple of months ago thinking that it was going to happen. It's finally happened. Well done. Let's talk IPL. It looks like Ange might be looking for another job.
Sounds that way.
He's going to get his marching orders. Where to for Ange next? Because clearly he can coach.
I think there'll be demand for him. But
Will it be in the EPL?
Don't know. I don't think it'll be a big club, so he's probably going to have to take a step backwards, which not sure the Ange ego will handle that well.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. New Matildas coach appointed right on the 4-1 win against Argentina, which was, I think, the second win in 4 or 5 days there. Yeah. So I've seen a little bit of footage of him. There was a few things he didn't necessarily look too happy with or comfortable with, but he does come from a pretty successful program in everywhere that he's been.
Yeah, so let's wait and see.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Last one on that. Congratulations, obviously, in the Melbourne derby there to Aurelio Wittmer.
Yes.
Obviously, a South Australian connection there in winning the A-League.
Yep. Well done to Melbourne City.
But a little bit of tarnish comes off of that grand final with some betting scandals there with a player and 2 other gentlemen involved. We haven't heard of this for a long, long time. Seems to be creeping back in with sports betting, isn't it?
Yeah, let's wait and see.
It's a bit of a worry. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the SANFL, which I know you're excited about, mate. But healthy crowd at Elizabeth to see Centrals take on Sturt, but Sturt take home the chocolates. who are now the benchmark, probably along with Glenelg, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Adelaide probably that slight bit. Adelaide and Central's that slight bit back. North Adelaide beating Woodville West Torrens has probably at least breathed a little bit life back into the potential
race.
Bit for the 5th spot.
Yep.
It was a good result. Look, Nord were good, but yeah, West Adelaide everything. Yeah, look, all the best, Adam Hartler, and yeah, there's a few things happening there, and yeah, it's a real worry.
Yep. You did speak about West Adelaide a little bit earlier, just needing a little bit of support. Look, get out to their games. Anyone that needs to support West Adelaide, even if you're a member of another club and you can spare a few dollars, buy a membership to them. All of that helps. Yes. Absolutely. North Adelaide bouncing back, obviously last week against Woodville West Torrens, which you said. Where do we see North Adelaide and the Eagles at the moment as far as North Adelaide, new coach, the Eagles trying to keep a level-headed, I suppose, leading into, they're in the top 5 at the moment, but anything can happen. Where are they at, mate?
I think probably those. I think there's a bit of a gap between the top 4
and then the next
3
2 or 4,
and then another drop again. So, yeah.
And Glenelg getting the job done over South Adelaide.
Probably Jackson Callow the last 2 weeks. He was very good against Centrals as well.
Yep.
And if the ball had got forward just a couple more times, Jacko may well have done enough. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk this week's games. We got Woodville West Torrens v Centrals. At Montine, or where they
actually went to that game last year.
Yep.
It was a good game.
Yep.
I might even go. I might do that Saturday.
Yep. Take a few books with you, mate. There'll be a few that'll come and
don't worry, they're always with me.
Yeah.
I'll go Centrals.
I'll go Centrals as well in a very close match. South Adelaide v Adelaide.
Adelaide.
Port Adelaide v West Adelaide.
Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide and Glenelg v North Adelaide.
Glenelg.
And on the Monday, June 9th at Unley, Thomas Farms Oval, Sturt v Nord.
You can't tip against Sturt at the moment.
Sturt for me, they are absolutely flying at the moment. Quickly running through the ladder, Sturt, Glenelg, Centrals, Adelaide, Woodville, West Torrens, and like you said, there's a little bit of a gap there between North Adelaide and Nord. We're both yawning tonight, mate. It's late night for us both. Yes. West Adelaide coach obviously taking some personal leave, which is something that I think we applaud in this day and age. All right, let's talk netball. It's a hard thing to say, but the Thunderbirds had an honourable loss to Sydney, and clearly they are two of the best teams.
Yeah, it's still a worry. I know what you mean, but we need. Come on, you Thunderbirds!
Absolutely. Halfway point of the season, I reckon the report card's not too bad for them. Probably a good B plus. Working towards an A or an A minus at this stage. All right, the Thunderbirds take on the Giants Sunday, the 8th of June at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. We are going to say if you can get tickets, go, but good luck. Yeah. Well done to the Thunderbirds there. Just on a side note with basketball, Adelaide Lightning look like they're going to retain their name as well. So well done to the Lightning. Last one on the netball, Romelda breaks another milestone, 9,000 goals.
I hope she can get to 10 quickly.
That'd be fantastic, but that would require another couple of seasons, I would assume, and I don't know whether she's up for that or not. All right, mate, let's take another quick break. Coming up...
You're listening to the Game On Podcast.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Are dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
Sorry, mate, did that one a little bit out of order. Coming up on Friday, we've got...
Thank you to Craig, back on board again, so thank you.
Absolutely, Keith Thomas, and we've got to get the Johnny Cunningham video up and running.
Flashbacks.
Thunderbirds are going to the finals with their first minor premiership in 11 years.
The major semi-final between the home side, the Adelaide Thunderbirds, and the Melbourne Vixens. The crowd gets ready to welcome in the heroes. Georgie Horges into the defensive action. Williams, what a ball. Horges again through the quick double. Straight to Tilly Garrett through. Why not? 300 intercepts for Sterling Humphrey. The Thunderbirds are go. They make it 8 from 8 at home in Adelaide and win their way straight through to a second consecutive Suncorp Super Netball Grand Final. The back-to-back dream stays alive.
So cleverly defended from Latanya Wilson. 4 minutes left in this third quarter, and that is just desperation at a ball. Straight in with a high ball to Aiken George. They push the lead out further. Now back in. Gorgeous. Just clever work with Sherian at the top, and the finish to follow. The Adelaide Thunderbirds hold on. They hold on and undefeated in season 2024. The reigning premiers back-to-back champions right here in Adelaide.
Extra time. Big finish.
All right, well done to the Thunderbirds there in their 2024 campaign. Hopefully 2025 goes like 2024. Mate, thanks again to our sponsors, Craig, Steen, Crash Repairs. We've got Gary KRIEVS and INTERSPORT Kilkenny. All right, let's move on to the extra time big finish, mate. The AFLW, are they making every opportunity to be inclusive to the whole football community to be involved with the schedule being released this week?
Yeah, yes and no. I am a bit surprised that there's not a couple of AFL double headers, curtain raiser and that side of things. Again, I'd always have it as a curtain raiser. I don't think it works playing it afterwards, after the league game, like they've done a couple of times at SANFL level. And I'm sorry, 99% of the crowd leave.
Yep.
I think you're more
you want to build it up.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. I know we've talked about it before. You're in the same boat as me, is that it should be at the sort of that February mark where, you're sort of building into the season. You're itching for football.
Adamant on that. I really am. I'm so firm on that. That was a dumb decision.
Everyone's itching for a bit of footy. Any football is better than no football, and that's why it was successful early on. All right, let's talk NBA. It's finals time. We might circle back to this one in a minute, but we've got the NBA finals being played. We've got the Thunder v. the Pacers Friday, game one of the actual finals. Pacers Friday, 10 a.m. local time here in South Australia. Should be a good final series, and we'll report back on that one next week. All right, let's talk cricket, mate. I know you're itching and chomping at the bit to get into this one. The World Test Championships around the corner. Are there going to be any last-minute surprises?
I don't think it's surprised because we now know, but it looks like Marnus is going to open. I think Constant's a little bit unlucky, but he probably hadn't done enough either. I think it shows that there's not a spot there.
Yep.
And
does Marnus have to perform in county cricket to?
Well, he hasn't. That's the ironical part. He's failed. He's failed dismally for Glenelg. He's been very disappointing.
Yep.
Where Green's now made 300s, he's virtually forced his hand. He'll play. Yep. I think he'll bat 4. I think Smith will probably bat 3.
Yep.
Is what I think they'll do.
Or
head at 5,
the other way around?
Webster at 6. No, I think I'll be surprised if Green's 3. So they'd earmark Green for 4, so I think he will be.
And then who's 5? Head?
Travis Bat's 5.
6?
Probably Webster.
Yep.
Could be Carey. It'll be either one of those two at 6 and 7.
Yep. 8?
Cummins 8. Stark 9. Lyon 10. I would play Boland. I think he deserves it. Let's remember, man of the match in his last Test match.
Yep.
And Hazelwood's played very little cricket. You're going to pick him out of bloody 2020 bullshit.
Yep.
For mine, yes, we know he's been very good in England, got a great record at Lords, but he's played a little cricket.
Yep.
But it sounds like it's Hazelwood.
You stole the thunder from me there. I was going to ask who did you think the 12th man would be, or Boland or Hazelwood. Boland's probably the one for me as well.
Yeah, I think he deserves it.
Should the World Test Championship stay in England, or will it go to India or perhaps Australia?
I think whoever wins it should then be scheduled to be played there the next time.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Therefore, there's the reward for winning it. So
sounds fair. That actually sounds like a pretty fair and reasonable offer. We all know that India's 78 cents in every dollar in cricket, so they are going to have a fair say in it. But you really want to share it around and share the love, so to speak.
I just think there's your reward. Yep. Okay, you can have financial reward, but there's your reward. Yep. You finish on top next time, or finish 1 or 2.
Yep.
It's at your home ground.
Absolutely. Why isn't Ricky Ponting involved in coaching the Australian team?
I just don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants the full-time commitment.
Yep.
Commentating, you can go home. They do a lot of stuff from home still where you think they're not always at the ground and all that. So I think there's part that there. I just don't think he wants it.
So it's that balance of life, so to speak?
Balance of life. Don't worry. Jeez, he's not going short what are we getting paid in India.
No, well, let's talk about that. We've got the Challengers taking on the Punjab Kings in the T20 final. Ricky Ponting obviously coaching one of those teams there.
Yeah, Inglis and Stoinis and Hazelwood in the opposition.
And Hazelwood, apparently the stat is he hasn't lost a final that he's been in. So that's an interesting one, that's for sure as well. All right, let's move on to the NRL. State of Origin, Game 1 goes to New South Wales.
Yeah, sorry, still back on the cricket. So in other words, it's going to be about under a week that Hazelwood would have then been in England to bowl in English conditions in the nets. For mine.
Yep, play Boland.
Yep.
No, that's right. State of Origin, Game 1 goes to New South Wales. I probably stuck with Queensland. Bit of false hope, I suppose.
Yeah, a bit disappointing, though.
But they were. New South Wales ran all over them, and I think that's that changing of the guard a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
New South Wales might dominate for the next year or two, but let's see what happens.
Yeah, but
there.
again, there's been a huge number of injuries again since, so yeah, it's hard to keep up with in that way.
It is exactly right. There's more in the injury room, getting taped up and looked
ACLs.
after than on the ground. All right, let's talk tennis. It's French Open time at the moment. Wimbledon coming up. Obviously, that's probably the one that we'll really tuck into. But Alex de Minaur was out early.
Disappointing.
It was disappointing. Alexi Popyrin, steps up, and the newest Australian woman goes a little bit deeper in the tournament.
Yeah, and de Minaur won the first 2 sets in the game too. Then to lose in 5, disappointing. Paul was just too good for. It was 6-3, 6-3, 6-3.
Yep.
And the lady did well, but just we need another a Barty.
Yep.
We need male or female.
Yes.
It was just something really to follow, and all of a sudden you knew you were a chance to win.
Costa Keener, I think it is, who's moved from Russia and become an Australian citizen, which is fantastic. And I heard her in a press conference. She just said it's a totally different environment. Everyone's so welcoming, and something that she's got to get used to now, being an Australian citizen. The men's this year is a little more open than we think, but the usual suspects of Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Sinner are still all contenders.
Yep.
But there has been a few surprises along the way. Is the tennis schedule too busy, too full?
Yes, it is. But then, hang on, the players, you're the ones who want all this money, and no one's making you compete each week. You don't have to play. Yes, your ranking might drop a bit, and you might get a harder draw in the Grand Slam, but you don't have to go and play.
Yep.
So it's not like a team sport and there's 40 rounds and you're in that team, you play that team. It's an individual sport.
Yep.
You don't have to play. So
you're saying sacrifice ranking a little bit for potential longevity?
For longevity and your body a bit fitter. So, I found that a bit amusing.
Mm-hmm.
That the money's there to play all year round and all that. They're not complaining about that side of it, the obscene money they make.
Nope.
Well, you don't have to play each week. It's not like,
well, not
from anyone under it's about 100 is the drop the mark in my understanding.
Yes.
For reasonable good living. Yes, under that, yes, they're playing to try and get their ranking up to try and survive and all that. But de Minaur doesn't have to be playing all the time. Mm-hmm. He's going to roll.
He can
sponsor the podcast.
He can sponsor the podcast. We'll send a little.
You can buy the bloody thing.
We'll send a little package along to him there. All right, mate. Let's finish off with some quick hot topics. AFL bounce. Do we need it? Don't we?
No. Bin the bounce. I've said that. Does anyone leave a game of football going, shit, how good was the bouncing today?
We did it a little bit a couple of weeks ago, but because we were looking at it specifically, but I agree. You don't notice it, and I think it would keep a few more umpires in the game.
It does. It's the worst thing for your back, etc. Yep. There were a heap of umpires against it going when it did in community football level.
Yep.
Suddenly the next week, on the Thursday night, one of them said, geez, how good was it not having to bounce? My back's so much better. And went, and who was whinging about it last week?
Yep.
Yeah, right, I was wrong.
The unintended consequences of not having to bounce.
No one misses it at Amateur League.
Last touch out of bounds. Seriously looked at it for the AFL. It's a yes as well.
Yep.
And the last one on there is the league betting scandal, which we talked about there.
Yeah.
It's not good. Could you ever see a promotion and relegation system in the AFL?
No. It's just too much money underneath. It's basically a few-year system trying to get a list and all that. No possibility whatsoever.
Does that bring back the old league reserves 18s?
That's the way I'd like to see it.
I think that's got to be something that's got to be looked at in a feasibility study on that.
Yep.
All right, mate, we better wrap things up. Any good, the bad, the ugly for this week, mate?
Good was Adelaide in terms of finishing a team off, yes, and all that. Bad for me was the basics, what we're talking about, kicking for goal, the draw. Warner for Sydney 3 times got the ball, took a step and bounced it.
Yes, Harley
I
Reid did
hate that.
Yep.
Always had the opinion, bring it in, free kick against you in junior footy because it's always the good kids who do it. And you notice the names we're talking are the good kids, the good players. Get rid of it. If you have it as a rule, it will get rid of it from junior level, and that's where they've got it from because they had the ball 85 bloody times a game.
Absolutely. Mate, I know you'll be watching a little bit of the under-18 championships that are going on at the moment. We'll talk about that in a little bit more depth next week.
It was amusing that today I've said, talking to a person, said, geez, I wish Ben Marsh had played 100 games for Adelaide. And he laughed and said, someone from Richmond's just said exactly the same thing, that they wish he'd played 100 games for Richmond.
Yep.
Well.
Yep. Going to be interesting. We'll talk about that one in a little more depth next week. As per usual, we like, rate, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you're listening around the world. Let us know where you're from. Jump on our socials, say hello, and rate, and subscribe. As we said, we promise to do better next week. And until then, thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.